Okay. So, good morning and welcome to the Employability Skills Series, where we explore the top skills employers are looking for in candidates. Each week, we will cover topics with thoughts and insights from professionals in a variety of industries. I am your host, Megan Morrow, Senior Associate Director of Experiential Learning and Employer Relations. And today I have Stephanie Jones, Vice President of Human Resources at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium, as well as Maddie, as our guest. And we will be discussing the importance of emotional intelligence in the workplace. Stephanie Jones is one of two HR teams, Jones and Jones, at Clearwater Marine Aquarium, just like a law firm. Stephanie is focused on both organizational culture and organizational development at CMA. This culture-focused HR role is fitting since Stephanie is a world traveler and connoisseur of different cultures. She has visited all 50 states, lived in 10 of them, and lived in Germany for 6 years as well. She has visited 48 countries, some for only 8 hours on travel layovers, but it still counts. Prior to coming to CMA, Stephanie covered all of the Northeast motorways and the DC airports as the HR director and was responsible for the welfare of 5,000 employees, both union and non-union members. Prior to that, she worked at Tampa Airport and was responsible for all the restaurants' union negotiations, HR, risk management, and OSHA safety compliance needs for over 5,000 employees from diverse cultures and backgrounds. Stephanie has an MBA, is SHRM certified, and has her professional and human resources certification. She has served on the board of several HR organizations, but training is her true love. She focuses on organizational development, training, employee engagement, and risk management to create safe and inclusive work environments. Stephanie loves to spend time with her military husband, David, her Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, Zoe, and wishes she had more chances to spend with her daughter, Tiffany, and her grandson, is it Aoden?
Aiden.
Aiden. Okay. Just an interesting spelling. Who live in Alberta, Canada. So, good morning, Stephanie and Maddie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
And Maddie, I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to introduce you. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Maddie Jones, the second half of Jones and Jones HR here at Clearwater Marine Aquarium. No relation. And so, really, your introduction of Stephanie kind of covered a lot of what we do here at CMA. I have been here as a team member with the aquarium for more than 14 years now. And before that was a volunteer and an intern. So I have been here for all of the excitement and all of the changes, and it's wonderful to still be a part of this organization. So, like Stephanie, my love is also of training and developing team members. I also love the recruiting element and the onboarding, just being one of the first points of contact to introduce people to our organization and share my passion for it. That's something that I really enjoy.
I love it. I love it. And it's really a calling because, like you said, you're the first contact and that's the first impression that people are gonna get. And, if that's gonna set the scene if they're gonna want to enjoy working there or stay. So that's awesome. So again, thank you, ladies, both of you so much for being here and sharing not only your time, but your thoughts and insights with our students. So today we are talking about emotional intelligence. And I know that you guys have prepared a wonderful lesson for us. So I have made you a co-host. I'm going to turn it over to you. And so that you guys can just kind of take it from here and share with our students what you wanted to tell them about emotional intelligence.
You bet. One second. We do have a couple videos and things like that, so just making sure that we can optimize the sound.
Sure.
So we'll talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. We'll kind of go over what the basics are and really what the benefits are. I often say to Maddie that if I had been trained on emotional intelligence when I had my daughter, I probably would have been a much better mother. So I think it also has applications not just to the school environment or the work environment, but also to your home environment in every relationship that you have. So I'm sure that many of us have been privileged to see Inside Out and the sequel, Inside Out, too. So to kind of jumpstart us into this topic, let's meet a few of those key players and characters. Can everyone hear okay?
Can't really hear well.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm joy. This is sadness. That's anger. This is disgust, and that's fear. Fear, Riley's emotion.
I'm not hearing anything.
We know that's what all of you felt when you came into this training today, the joy to learn, obviously, all about emotional intelligence.
And so, of course, the other side of the coin, this is how we anticipate you'll feel when we're done spending time with you today.
So I have this problem that I'm constantly calling Maddie into the office because I think I save a file and then I lose it. And so this is truly me. No kidding, counting just like that.
Now, those of us who have been in Florida for a little while, we know the fear of palmetto bugs and that feeling of absolute disgust when they start to fly at you.
Hmm. Hmm. Ugh.
We have a little bit till June 1st, so that's something at least. But I think this last year, especially, a lot of us were in the same boat watching those projections for the forecasts.
And we definitely got hit here. So
Ladies, I'm not seeing anything. Are you projecting? Are you showing something?
yes, we've been showing the videos.
Students, are you seeing anything? Because I'm not.
We can't hear or see
'Cause
anything.
I was wondering, I was like, okay, so I'm sitting there trying to think. I can hear a little bit, but I'm not seeing, I wasn't seeing anything.
Okay, well, let's try this again.
Yes, please.
Can you see the screen now?
No, we just see you.
Okay, so
Well, we're not nearly as exciting as what we're showing on the screen
We're
here.
like, I'm just trying to hold this, wait, I was trying to wait it out.
absolutely.
There we go.
All right, how's that?
Better?
There you go.
There we go.
Well, let's just move right into what is
The
emotional.
buzz. I have a buzz. The buzz,
There we go.
the
Great.
oh my
So really what emotional intelligence is, it's about blending thinking with feeling so that you make the optimal decision. So everybody has feelings. They're natural to have in every situation that you come into, but using your thought process, your rational side of your brain to make the right decision based on those feelings. So that palmetto bug that might have flown at you, not running away from it, making sure that you actually take care of it, maybe kill it if necessary or relocate it, although I probably wouldn't do that.
We all react differently. And there are a lot of professional as well as personal implications for emotional intelligence. You'll also see us refer to this as EQ for short. EQ is actually one of the single biggest predictors of performance in the workplace, which is really interesting when you think about that. And it can correspond to an increase in salary on average. So on the top right, you'll see there's been a correlation for every 1 point increase in EQ. There tends to be an average of a pretty substantial increase in annual salary. Now, another thing we talk about points for EQ. The resource that we've used is called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It offers a lot of different strategies for improving your emotional intelligence, and it's measured quantitatively. And it's one of the cool things, too, is that your EQ scores can and do change over time, depending on how you proactively apply the lessons that you've learned and work to improve your emotional intelligence. So it's pretty great.
So there is quite a spectrum of feelings. Everybody has, like I said, natural feelings. They run all along the wavelength. And so what we need to be careful of is the words that we use to describe those feelings. So if Maddie were to walk in here and tell me that she is completely overwhelmed, I would probably be down on my knees going, what can I take off your plate? You can't leave. But if she were to come in and say, hey, I'm feeling a little stressed, I would be more likely to be, okay, so what is it that's stressing you out? How can we figure out what we can do differently so that you're not stressed? What, can I take off your plate? But I'd be much calmer than I would be if she said she's overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. So it really is all about that degree. And we'll talk about this as pertains to emotional intelligence. But one of the first things you can do to improve yours is to really dive into the specifics of what you're feeling when you're feeling it. And part of it is evaluating to what degree are you feeling any certain thing. So now a little bit of neuroscience. That's what we all expected that we'd be doing on a Wednesday morning, right? Does anybody know some of the feel-good hormones that we experience that can alter our mood? Shout them out.
Dopamine.
Dopamine, yeah, that's one.
Serotonin.
That's another. And then oxytocin, the love and bonding hormone, and then endorphins. I did a spin class one time. And after I got through the phase of feeling like I was actually going to die, it was amazing. The endorphins kicked in. So I can attest that they're a real thing that can impact your mood. And then on the flip side, we have kind of the negative or the stress hormones. Does anybody know? Well, there we go. Adrenaline and cortisol. So that fight or flight, and then cortisol, the stress hormone. And then, of course, we also have sleep hormones, melatonin, that impacts our sleep cycle. And that, of course, can have an impact on our mood.
So let's talk about why it matters to you as a leader in your class, in your school, in your personal life, in your jobs, and how you can enhance that. So less than 30% of the workforce is actively engaged today. However, it talks about the leadership accounts for approximately 70% of the engagement of the employees. So when you report to somebody, if they're nice to you, kind to you, take patience with you, work with you, you're more likely to feel comfortable at your job, feel good about your job, than if it's the manager that walks in and starts yelling at you immediately upon entering the door.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Now, take a moment, guys, and think about past leaders or professors or managers that you've worked with. Think about what those traits are that make somebody a good manager or a good leader. Are there any examples that you can think of? How about really great with spreadsheets? How about knows how to use statistical analysis in R? Are those things that make somebody a great leader, a great manager? Probably not. That's great for their job, but typically what we hear with people who make good leaders are they collaborate well, they're team players, they're approachable, they are, all of those kinds of things, which tie much more into the emotional intelligence, the EQ, as opposed to the IQ, which are the hard skills, the technical skills, the knowledge of software and programs and statistics.
So emotional intelligence is the stuff below the line that you just saw in the picture. So there are two different parts of it. There is your personal intelligence, your internal emotional intelligence. How aware are you of your moods and your mood swings and your feelings? And are you able to regulate those moods, mood swings, and feelings? And then your social intelligence. Do you have empathy or social awareness for those people around you? And do you have people skills? Are you able to build a relationship and hang on to that relationship because you have good people skills? Are you able to identify when someone is going through a hard time and be able to empathize with them?
So first step, we've got to turn our focus in. We've got to do self-awareness.
So I think it's important to know how others see you, but also to know how you see yourself. Everyone wants to be seen as the lion in this picture. But even if you're the cat, you can project that lion to others based on your own awareness of yourself and your feelings. And so it's very important for you to be able to understand the picture that you're making to others yourself, or is it the picture that in the mirror?
So an example real quick of that. I do a lot of surveys with people, chatting with our interns, collecting their feedback. And I do a lot of these on Zoom, and I'm typing while I'm talking to them because I'm taking their notes. I always warn them at the beginning that I have a face, like my neutral face when I'm typing might not be as friendly and welcoming because I'm concentrating on transcribing. So I always advise, if I am not smiling, it is just my resting typing face.
Oh, I thought it was the RBF.
Well, that's not when I'm typing. That's just all the time. But the resting typing face, the RTF, I warn people about that. I'm self-aware enough to know that my face when I'm typing isn't always welcoming, and I don't want them to perceive that as an emotion that I'm feeling about them and our interaction.
And this self-awareness is the first step to developing emotional intelligence.
So back to neuroscience a little bit. We sort of have three, I don't want to say sections, three pathways that go in order as far as how we process and respond to stimuli and how we respond to those things. So first off, we have kind of the spinal cord, just the reptile brain, and that is just straight up stimulus response. You put your hand on a hot stove, you're not sitting there thinking, wow, that's really hot, I should move my hand. It's almost instinctual. When you get past that, you get into the mammal brain, and that's also kind of, I call it the toddler brain. It's not fair, I don't want to do that, and that's just you're in your emotions. What we want to do and what we want to practice with emotional intelligence is being more rational, more objective, and really thinking about how we're feeling and how we respond. We don't just respond instinctively, and we don't respond from a place of our emotions. We get to the rational response. And that's really hard because sometimes that amygdala gets hijacked, right? And we stay in that toddler brain. And it's really hard to get past that. How many times has your partner come to you and said, we need to talk? Or HR calls you into the office, or when you're younger, the principal wants to see you.
Or the teacher calls you up.
So it can be very, very difficult to get past that amygdala hijack and past that toddler brain and to be able to think rationally. But that's one of the things we need to do, is we need to make sure that we do that. And how we can do that, it sounds really simple. Just stop and take a breath. Don't react knee-jerk in the moment. Stop, take a moment, take a breath, and then you'll be able to get past that amygdala hijack and be able to choose your course of action.
So think back to the characters from Emotional Intelligence, although you didn't get to see the videos. These are the characters that we were showing you about. And they did not have that ability to stop and take a breath. They just reacted based on the character that they are. And so that's what we want to think about, is how do we get beyond anger to where we react in a positive way so that we can get the best course of action out of the situation. Mm-hmm. So one of those ways to do that is to know who and what pushes your buttons. So everybody's going to have people that push your buttons that just drive you crazy. But if you know who they are and you know how they push your buttons, you can actually do what Maddie and I call putting the A over our head, kind of making that, acknowledging that everybody's there for the good of the company, the organization, the classroom, the animals, whatever, but being able to say, okay, she wants the same thing I do, which is what's best for the employees. So let me just stop, breathe, and think before I respond, because I know she's going to push my buttons when I walk into this meeting.
Mm-hmm. And keeping a journal about your emotions can be really helpful too. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I find that if I'm conscious about sitting down and writing out my thoughts about something, I'm more easily able to identify trends or patterns, and that can help you with getting to know yourself under stress too. I have a 15-month-old son. I like to sleep. Those two things do not go hand in hand. My husband calls me Venom, like Tom Hardy, when I'm sleep deprived, which has been, for the last 15 months now. So getting to know yourself under stress, that's a way that you can do that, is journaling about your emotions to find those triggers, identify them, because forewarned is forearmed. If you know somebody pushes your buttons, you know that you have this repeating pattern, you can get to know yourself under stress. And again, use that information to change your behavior.
So sometimes I think you have to talk to somebody that's not emotionally invested. So, like talking to your parents, they're probably emotionally invested. Talking to someone else in the same classroom, probably emotionally invested. But finding a friend, a coworker, an advisor that is not emotionally invested into what you're doing right now or the situation that you're right now experiencing and sharing with them what's going on, they can help you identify the scope of your feelings and the spectrum. So we talked about the ultraviolet light spectrum. They can help you identify where you are in that spectrum. Then once you identify where you are, you've improved your self-awareness and now you're able to self-regulate.
Counting to 10, we talked earlier about breathing, stopping and taking a breath. Counting to 10 is just basically another way to do that. It disrupts that amygdala hijack because you're pausing things. You are taking a deliberate pause, and that will allow you to get there and to think about things.
So some of the tips that we're sharing with you are in the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book. So we've just picked a couple that we really like to talk about, but there's like 60 for every section.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to think about neuroplasticity. What we think, do, and pay attention to does change the structure and function of our brains. My mother-in-law tends to be a fairly negative person, and she tends to kind of make people uncomfortable that are around her. And so I decided to do an experiment with her. And she follows me on Facebook, and so I started to post a positive message on Facebook every morning. I knew she would like it because she likes everything that I put out on Facebook. Whether she really does or not, that's another story. But I knew she would like it. And so she starts to read them. And then maybe 3 weeks go by and I see she starts putting a positive message out on Facebook. And she's reading it and she's thinking about it. And then I'm calling her after work to say, how are you doing? How's work going? And she starts to respond in a positive way instead of the negative way that she was responding. So my experiment was successful. It totally supported neuroplasticity.
Mm-hmm. And that does take deliberate effort. Just like hacking your way through a jungle, at first, you're going to have to put forth a lot of effort to forge that new path. But then the more and the more you practice and you utilize it, the bigger and broader and more smooth that path gets, and the easier it is to take that mental path.
So we've moved beyond the personal part of emotional intelligence and we've moved to the social part of emotional intelligence. And in this screen, you see a hippo and a turtle. Can anybody tell me one thing a hippo and a turtle have in common? I'll give you a hint. It has to do with what they're foraging for on the ground. They're both herbivores or vegetarians. So they eat the same thing. So they come from completely different worlds. They live in completely different environments, but they can understand each other because they found that one thing that they have in common. And so social awareness is all about understanding others' emotions and needs and being able to treat them accordingly. So they're finding that commonality.
There are 4 sticks on the ground in this picture.
No, absolutely not. I see 3 sticks.
I absolutely see 4. Look on the left side there. 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, I'm looking on the right side. 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, guys, who's right? She always says that she's right just because she's the boss.
That's true. So you
Or-
can see both, right? So you have to actually look at it through the other person's lens and have to understand where they're coming from. So that's an emotional intelligence trick, is to say, okay, again, I'm assuming the best, that everybody wants the same, the good for the animals here at this organization. So now let me try to figure out where they're coming from with what they're saying, how they're reacting, what they're doing. And if I can try to figure out where they're coming from, I can understand more about them. I can have more empathy and more social awareness and build a better relationship. Mindfulness is really important because that's about paying attention on purpose. And that is definitely something that you have to do in a relationship. So we have a rule in my house. When we sit down to dinner, there are no phones allowed at the table. We leave them in either another room on the counter, and we also silence them because we actually want to have a conversation when we're having dinner. I haven't seen my husband all day. I've been playing with a dog, or he's been at work playing with a dog, whatever. But we want to really talk about each other's day so we can actually work on our relationship.
I really like that. And that's, you guys have probably experienced this. Do any of you have that one friend that you want to go out and catch up? You're really excited and they are on their phone the entire time that you're there trying to socialize with them. It's frustrating and it doesn't make you feel good. It doesn't make you feel valued. We don't want to be that person. When we're having conversations with people, we want to be present and pay attention.
So let's give some more tips again. So for me, I'm not a very social person. I don't really like going to parties and things like that. So I have a back pocket question. So what a back pocket question means is I have something that I can use in a situation. If I get into a scary situation where I need to be able to talk to people, but I don't have anything to say, my back pocket question is all about traveling. Megan mentioned in the beginning that I'm a world traveler. It's one thing I love to do. Been around the world and really enjoyed it. And so where's the last place you vacationed is my back pocket question. It helps me understand them a little better. It works on social awareness.
For me, something I like to remember too is to get up and get out of my familiar little bubble. A lot of our work is sitting behind a computer, answering emails or making phone calls or doing things in the payroll system. And that's great. I have a lot to keep me busy there, but that doesn't give me the bigger picture. So I really try to get up and to walk around and to see the other teams within our organization. Or if you're out in public, just trying to break out of your comfort zone and your bubble to experience other people and their perspectives on things.
So I think it's important when you are talking to someone and you make a decision to do something, specifically in my role as, the boss, so that's why there's 3 sticks, not 4, to explain the decisions. It helps people understand you. It helps people understand situations if they understand the why behind it. If you just make autonomous decisions and you never explain why you made the decision that you made, it's going to cause a rift in a relationship between you and other people. So all about that relationship management, it's about explaining why.
And also acknowledging the other person's feeling. I understand that you feel very strongly that there are only 3 sticks. I respect that. You're allowed to have your feelings, even if they're wrong. So acknowledging the other person's feelings, and that really does tie in with explaining the decisions and being transparent about why you've arrived at a certain conclusion.
Absolutely. So let's talk about how it can help you. And remember, I mentioned it can help you in your personal life as well as your work life and your school life.
It can help improve your communication and your collaboration skills. Everything that we've talked about is understanding yourself, understanding others, and using that knowledge to form better relationships, again, both personally and professionally.
It can also help reduce stress. So if you start working on that understanding of the others that push your buttons, how they push your buttons, and also that spectrum of emotions, you feel less stress. And you go into meetings or classes or lectures, and you don't feel quite as stressed out. So you have better overall being.
Absolutely. Again, forewarned is forearmed. If you know what to expect out of a certain situation, even if knowing what to expect is just how you feel like you're going to react, that is knowledge that you have to come into it and make better decisions.
So we've talked a little bit about mindfulness and practicing self-awareness and positive mental habits, neuroplasticity. Let's talk about improving sleep hygiene.
I love talking about that because that is so important to me. Before we do that, though, kind of to toggle back to what Stephanie said about creating those positive mental habits. This is not something that just happens overnight. Like I talked about with my machete in the jungle metaphor there, this is something that takes practice. It doesn't happen quickly, but it's so worth it in the end. Do you guys know about how long does it take to establish a new habit?
I've heard that's about 21 days.
That's what I've heard. About 3 weeks. That seems like a long time. But if you're consistent with yourself and in practicing some of these things within 3 weeks, you might have that new habit and it gets a lot easier from there. Now, onto the sleep hygiene. I would hazard a guess that none of us on this call are getting appropriate sleep. If you are, I'm jealous and I want to know how you're doing it. But these are a few things that you can do to help enhance the quality of your sleep. The first thing is a lot of people erroneously think that drinking alcohol, of course, legally, if you are over the appropriate age, is a sleep aid. And it is a depressant. It can help you fall asleep, but it's not good restorative sleep when you're under the influence.
In caffeine, everybody says they drink coffee because they need the jolt and the wake me up in the morning. So drinking caffeine right before you go to bed may not be the best source. And that includes dark chocolate, etc. Sources of caffeine.
Definitely. And then blue light. How many of us are guilty of you get in bed and you're just going to do one more quick scroll through your emails or your social media? That blue light is triggering your brain to stay awake. It is not restful and it's not helping you get into that sleepy state of mind, which we desperately need.
So, really, what we're talking about here with emotional intelligence is you have to raise your own self-awareness before you can build the relationships and have empathy for others. So, it really starts with you. So, EQ skills can be learned, but they start with you. You have to make that decision that you want to change the way you react in situations, that you want to change the way you respond. The only thing you can control is yourself and how you respond to a situation. My mother-in-law still pushes my buttons to this day, but I try very hard. I talk to my husband first. I say, okay, I know the only thing I can control is how I respond. I understand. And I go into that situation hoping that it can be a positive situation.
So this is that resource again that we utilized for the bulk of this presentation. It does have that quiz where you can take it and you can identify what your current EQ score is, and then you can retake it. And there are 66 different strategies in there. So you can see Stephanie and I just kind of went through and we cherry picked the ones that resonated the most with us personally. But there are so many other ways that you can enhance and improve your emotional intelligence. So you might find a method that resonates more with you.
I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to Megan.
Thank you. I was writing down that book. That's wonderful. I'm going to ask for that to you guys to send me that. I love that you guys hit on so many wonderful things. Actually, this morning when I was making breakfast for my little boy, we were talking about this because I knew that we were going to have this conversation, and you hit on so many things that I had those exact conversations about you being responsible for your response.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also reading the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. And that's what it's all about. You let people do what they do. Let your mother-in-law be negative, let the things happen. And then you have to take a deep breath. How am I going to respond? Because I can't control, in my role, I can't control if my students turn their stuff in late. I can't control if I have 50 students in the class when I'm only supposed to have 25. I can't control, I have to let it. And then, okay, how am I going to respond? How am I going to let this affect me? So I love this. I love this topic. Students, I hope that you were really taking this in and absorbing this, because this is something that will truly take you so far. I love the slide about how it really equates to money too. I mean, that's a tangible, that's huge. That's something that, you could say, hey, I can make more money if I just, self-reflect. And this is something you have 150 million% control over.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome.
We teach this class for our interns when they come in on board. It's on part of their first day with us because it is so important as an intern. You are going to go through so much stress because you're putting that stress on yourself because you want to be good at what you're doing. You want to be good for the team that you're going to be working with. You want it to be a successful experience. But if you can take that emotional intelligence and say, okay, I'm putting the stress on myself, let me separate it. So when I walk into situations, I don't stress out. I don't melt down. I don't start tearing up. I don't, not that any of that is bad. You can do that. That's all, but identify why you're doing it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Where is this coming from? I just finished reading the inner work and then the Mel Robbins theory, let them, so it's just like, where am I coming from a place? Why, where's my reaction coming from?
Yeah.
So wonderful. I love it. I'm going to ask you two to stay on for just a quick second while I release the students, but students, again, I'm going to put this back up for you real fast. If you just came in and you missed it, please make sure that you scan the QR code for your attendance or click the link in the chat pod for your attendance. But thank you so much for coming. I know we went a little bit over, but this was such a fabulous topic. I think we could have sat here for another hour or so and talked about this for sure. I know I could. But for the rest of you, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording. Everybody have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.